Did you know that understanding a few basic music theory concepts can dramatically improve your music making skills? In this video, I'm going to teach you the essential music theory concepts from scratch. Many aspiring musicians feel overwhelmed by music theory, and they either think it's too complicated or it's irrelevant to their creative process. Some even think that music theory is just a set of rules which will stifle their creativity. And then there's others who think music theory is only for classical musicians. But the truth is, music theory is the foundation on which all music is built. It is the language with which musicians communicate. Understanding music theory doesn't mean you will lose all your creativity or spontaneity. Instead, it's going to give you all the tools and confidence to express yourself effectively. So let's start at the very beginning. So music is written on these 5 lines known as the stave or the staff. And music is also written using note heads, which are just little round oval things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a note head on every line of the staff. So here's one. By the way, I would suggest that you get yourself a piece of manuscript paper. If you don't have one, I'm going to put one in the description so you can just print that one. And as I'm doing these exercises, you can just write on your paper as well. Print as many as you want. Okay, so here's a note head on the first line. And when I say the note is on a line, the line actually goes through the head of the note. Comes out the other way. Right, so there's a note head on line number 1. There's another on the second line. Line 3. Line 4. And line 5. Okay. So right now I've drawn note heads on every line of the staff. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to draw a note head in every space. Okay, so remember, when the note is on a line, the line is going through its head. When it's in a space, so let me just get another staff here. When the note is in a space, that means that the head is in between the 2 lines. So like that note head right there is in between the lines. So I'm going to draw another one. So that's in space 1. This is now in space 2. Space 3. And finally, space 4. Okay. So there were my note heads on lines, and these are my note heads in spaces. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to complete a few exercises on your manuscript paper, so you can pause the video and complete these. So the first exercise that I want you to do on your manuscript is to draw a note head, just like I did. Draw a note head in every line on your staff. Okay, so pause the video and try that out. Okay, once you're done with that, here's second task for you. I want you to draw a note head in every space on your staff. And here is your third task, and this is maybe things can actually get quite interesting here, is we're going to try and draw a note head on every line and space on the staff. So we'll start from the bottom going up. So we'll start on that line and then space, line. My goodness, this is not very neat because I'm doing this on my screen. Space, line, space, line. I hope I can squeeze all this in there. Space and line. Okay. Right, see if you can do the same. Right, so we want a note head on every line and space. Now, once you're done with that, the next thing about these note heads is sometimes they've got a stem. Okay, so if I have a note over here maybe, what that tells me is it's a low note, and that's why it's at the bottom of the staff. But if I have a note maybe there, then that's a high note, okay, because it's way up on the staff. Now, if we're going to add a stem, high notes and low notes are written differently. So if you have a low note, and by low note I mean anything from line 1 to the middle line, basically to line number 3. Okay, so like that's a low note, that's a low note, even that's a low note. Okay, so when you have a low note, you add your stem to the right of the note. So I'm going to add a stem to this low note here, just like that. I'm going to add a stem to this low note, like that, and I'll add a stem to this low note. Remember, this one here, it's low, but it can also be high. Okay, so that's how you draw. That's how you'd add a stem to a low note. But if you had a high note, let me just undo all this. Right, so let me draw a high note. So there's a high note, and maybe let's draw one here. When you're adding a stem to a high note, you put the stem on the left, and the stem will be pointing down. So it looks like this. That's a stem for a low note, and there's a stem for a low note. If it's in the middle, you could either draw your note like that, or you can draw it like this. So both are correct in that case. Okay, so I'm going to give you another little task here. So what I want you to try and do is, let me give you a few notes. So I'm gonna put one here. You can copy exactly what I'm doing. So here's the first note. I'll put this over here. I'll just do this at random. So maybe I'll put another one here, just for the sake of confusion. I'll put another one there. I'll put one here, and I'll put one there. Right. So see if you can copy these note heads onto your staff or onto your stave. Now, what I want you to do is to add a stem to each of these 5 note heads. Okay. So again, here, pause the video, and then you put the stems, and then when you press play, you'll see the answer. Okay. So hopefully you paused the video, and now you've just pressed play again. So the answer to the first one, let's see if you got it right. So the stem would look like this, because that's a low note. This note right here could go either up or down. I'm just going to put it down. If you put it up, you're also correct. Okay. This one here is a low note, so I'm going to add my stem to the right and going up like that. This one here is a high note, so I'm going to add the stem like that. And this one is also a high note, so stem to the left. Okay. So if your note heads look like this with the stems, maybe even neater, well done to you. You've got the idea. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Right, so the next important thing is these things called clefs. Hello there, my music family and friends. I just wanted to take a quick break from the video, and I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. Now, really quickly, did you know that about 75% of the people that watch my videos are not yet subscribed to this channel? That means there's a chance that you're probably not subscribed either. So if you're not subscribed, please do me a favor and go and click on that subscribe button. That's really going to help me to continue creating content like this, and for this channel to do really well. The next thing I wanted to say was, if you are either a musician or a songwriter who's looking to grow their skills, I would like to invite you to a very special online event. This is called Play Piano Like a Pro. So this is for anyone who's never played the piano, or maybe you've played a little bit, but you really want to develop your skills. In just 90 days, I will take you through step by step from absolute beginner to really sounding like a very decent pro. Then the final online event that I would like to invite you to is, if you are a piano player who's already played and you're probably at an intermediate level, so that means you can play some chords and the inversions, you know your scales, and you can play basic songs in different keys. I've got a jazz program that I'm also running over 90 days that I would like to invite you to, where we're going to learn the basics of jazz piano, chord voicings, jazz tunes, chord progressions, how to improvise, the works. So if this sounds like something that you might be interested in, I am going to put a link in the description below. So please click that link and I will get in touch with you. Okay, so let's jump back into the video. So there are two clefs that you're going to see at the beginning of the stave. The first one is called the treble clef. And I'm just going to show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you how to draw it. So I'm going to draw one. Again, please forgive me, I'm doing this on my screen with my finger. So let's see how this goes. So, okay, that's not as terrible as I was anticipating, but whenever you see that, that's what's known as a treble clef. And a treble clef starts on the second line. So let's practice drawing that treble clef. So what you do is, you can even put a little dot here on the second line. What you have to do is to make a little coil where you're going to touch the bottom of line 3 like this. So don't go past line number 3. So there's my little coil. I've just touched line 3, and then I'm going to go down and just touch line number 1. Okay. Once I've done that, I'm going to go all the way up until I get above the staff. Okay, so you might want to practice this first step right here. I'll do another one right next to it. So I'll put a little dot there on line 2, coil, touch line 3, touch line 1, and go all the way up to there. Okay. When you're done with that, what you can then do is to simply draw a straight line going down. So from here, you can just draw a line going down. And then once you're here, you give this note a little tail. And there's your treble clef. I'm going to do the same over here. I'll draw a straight line going down. Oops, I missed it. And tail. Okay. I'm just going to try and join these two things right here. Okay. Not as neat, but that's the idea. So the rules for the treble clef are, first of all, make sure that you start on line number 2. Your coil should not go past line 3. So for example, don't do something like that. And definitely don't go past line 1. Okay. So you don't want to do that. And at the same time, you also don't want, you want to make it so small that you're not even touching line 3 or line 1. Okay. So again, you can pause the video, and what I would like you to do is to draw at least 5 treble clefs on your stave. Okay, so pause the video, try that out. Okay, so I'm sure your treble clefs look amazing. Now let's move on to what's known as the bass clef. So the bass clef starts on line number 4. Okay, so I'll do what I did with the treble clef. I'll put maybe a little dot on line number 4 here, and I'll make a little coil, make sure that I don't touch line 5. In fact, I do touch line 5, I don't go past it. And this goes down, it doesn't have to coil all the way. I'll just go past line 3. Okay, let me do that again right next to it. So start on line 4, sorry. I'll do my little coil which touches line 5. Oops. Yeah, that one wasn't too good because I nearly went past line 5. Let me do that again. Yeah, that's probably better. Okay, so here's what's missing from my bass clef. Every bass clef has to have 2 dots. One in the 3rd space and the other in the 4th space. Okay, I'm going to put 2 dots here as well. I once read in some book somewhere that those 2 dots are kind of like 2 bubbles, and then you've got your fish swimming in between the bubbles. So let's say you had a note head here. right? This note here, goodness me, I can't even draw. What does a fish look like? Maybe like that or something. Okay, this is probably the worst fish of them. Actually, that fish is not too bad. Okay, there's a fish, right? This is the tail. That triangle, there's the tail, and that dot, there's the eye. The fish swims in between the two bubbles. So fish, that's F. So any note that you find on that line is an F. Okay, so do me a favor, practice drawing at least 5 bass clefs. Okay, and let's see what your bass clefs look like. So now that you know your treble clef and you know your bass clef signs, let's have a look at what the treble clef notes actually are. So I'm going to draw a treble clef on this new stuff that I've got here. Okay, I'm going to do my dot, touch that line, touch line 1, go all the way up, tail. Okay, so if I put, maybe let me just start with a note head on every, actually, you know what, let me put a head on every single line in space. So I'll start on that line, and then I'll go to this space, and then I'll go to that line, I'll go to that space, line, space, line. Goodness, this has turned out too small. Right, anyway, I'm just going to deal with what I've got here. Right, so this note here is an E. Let's see if I can make some space here. Right, so that's an E. The cool thing about treble clef is the notes are in alphabetical order. So what you just need to know is the very first line of the treble clef is an E. So that means the note in the space next to it is an F, followed by G, followed by A, then B, then C, then D. Okay, so these are the names of these notes that I've written here. Okay, so if you work out that the very first line is an E, then you're sorted. Okay, I've come across people using all sorts of different acronyms that help them remember. Maybe we can go through those. So those are useful in the beginning, I guess, but ideally you just want to know what all these lines mean in spaces, right? So let me restart. I'm going to draw notes only in the spaces, because this, to be fair, I found this helpful for myself as a child, actually, to know some of these acronyms. So I'm going to put a note head in the first space, in fact in every space. Okay, so this is the acronym that I was taught as a child. They said that the first note, the first space is an F, and then the note in the next space is an A. In fact, let me not write it there, let me write it down here to avoid confusion. So there's an A, and then the next one is a C, and then the last space is an E. And I hope you can see that that spells face. So if you find a note in this space, it's an F. If you find it in this space, that's an A, that's a C, that's an E. Okay, so you can always use face to easily identify notes in the treble clef spaces. Okay, let's get rid of those spaces and let's deal with the lines. So the lines had an acronym as well. So there's a line, there's a line, there's a line, there's a line. Okay, right, so what I was told, that first line is an E, the next line will be G, the following line will be B, then D, and finally F. Okay, so unlike the spaces which spelt like a real word, which was face, we don't really have a thing, as far as we know, called egbedif, right? So instead of trying to read that, we can make an acronym. So the E can stand for every good bird does fly. That's the one I was taught as a child, and I've heard lots of other ones, right? So every good bird does fly. So We now know all the spaces of the treble clef and we know all the lines of the treble clef. So let me give you a little quiz. I'll draw a note anywhere on the staff. Let me see if you can identify what that note is. Okay, so if I put a note here, actually, let me save myself time and go to Muse score and I'll draw notes here. Right, so there's already a treble clef right here. And all I'm going to do is draw notes there. And as I draw them, you can just tell me the name of the note. So here's your first one. Okay, so what note is that? So if you've said B, you're correct, because every good boy, or every good bird, whatever you want, right? Here's another one. Let me see if we can identify this. So that's in a space. If you've said F, you are correct. I'm going to give you another one, and I'm going to go through these quite quickly now. Let me see how alert you are. If you said A, that's correct. Okay, try and beat me to it. What's that? If you've said D, you're correct, because every good bird does. So that's a D. Okay, what's this one right here? If you've said E, you're correct, because that's in a space, and face ends with E. Right, what have I got there? If you've said G, you're correct, because every good. Okay, I'll give you two more. What is that? If you've said F, you're correct. Okay, because every good bird does fly. And finally, what is that? If you've said F, you're correct again, because that's in a space and face. All right, good job. Right, so those are the names of the notes in the treble clef. Now let's go and have a look at the bass clef. So I'm going to draw a bass clef right here. I'll start there, touch line 5, go down, and my two little bubbles. Okay, so I'm going to draw note heads in every space. Okay, so the note in the first space is A, followed by C, followed by E, followed by G. Okay, I hope you can see that the spaces now represent different letters of the alphabet. If it was treble clef, we would be saying, well, that's an F. Okay, but because it's bass clef, it's a different letter. It's now A. For this, my junior school teacher gave us an acronym to say, all cows eat grass. Okay, and that can be quite useful. So if you find a note in the first space, that's an A, C, E, G. All cows eat grass. So those are your bass clef spaces. So it's very important that you check what clef you're in before you start identifying random notes. Okay, I'm going to give you the lines. So if I put a line there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, my note heads are getting less neat as I go. Right, so over here I've got G, B, D, F. We already know the F because that's our fish which swims between the two bubbles, and A. Okay, so an acronym for this can be Granny's boots don't fit Auntie. So Granny's boots don't fit Auntie. Okay, so you can use that as your acronym to identify the notes in the bass clef. Okay, so quiz time. I'm going to quiz you on some of the notes of the bass clef. So I'm going to go over here and I am going to change this into a bass clef. Okay, right, tell me what note this is as soon as I put it down. Right, so there. I hope you didn't say A, because now we're in bass clef. If you said C though, then you're absolutely right. So that's a C. Okay, because all cows. By the way, I don't even know if that's a fact that all cows eat grass. Maybe some eat meat. Who knows? Okay, anyway, so that's a joke, by the way, which is not funny. Right, what is that there? G for granny, right? And what is that? If you have said F, you are correct, because that's our fish swimming between the bubbles, right? What have we got here? That's a G, because all cows eat grass, right? Allegedly. And what have we got over here? If you said A, you're absolutely correct. What have we got over there? Remember, it's all bass clef. We have got, if you said D, then you're correct. Okay, right. Because granny's boots don't. All right. So let me confuse you a little bit here. I am going to put some clefs in random places. So now you have to look at the clef in order to identify this correctly. Okay, so let's see. So maybe I'll put a different clef in each bar. Let's see how. Oh, I just wanted this simple. Nah, I'll keep it like that then. Maybe I'll put this here. Goodness me. No. Okay, there we go. All right. So as I enter the notes, feel free to write them down or yell it through your computer screen. Tell me what that note is. Okay, so here's one for you. Tell me what that is. I'll tell you the answers at the end. Okay, let's see if you got this right. Okay, so over here I see bass clef, so your answer C. And it's still bass clef, so that should be an F. Oh, I made this so easy for you. C, because it's bass clef. B is bass clef. Okay, now the clef changes, so there's a treble clef here. Well, that has to be a B, because every good bird. And that is still treble clef, so that's an F. And we go to bass clef. That's a G. And that is a C. And there's a B for you and a G. All right. Okay, so if you got all that right, you're very much on the right track. All right. So now that we've covered all the notes on the treble clef and the bass clef, we're now going to take a look at note values. Because every note is played for a certain duration of time. You've got some long notes and then you've also got some short notes. Okay, so these can be represented visually using different types of signs. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to draw is just a note head. So if you see a note head just like this in your music, what that means is that this note right here is 4 counts. So you're going to play that note and count up to 4 while holding it down on any instrument. Okay, so you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4 while you hold the note. I could even sing a note and actually let me use my voice. So I'll sing a note and then I'm going to count up to 4 using my fingers. So here's my note, which is 4 counts. La. If I were to write that note down, it would look exactly like this. Well, here is another note that I would like to draw. It's a note head with a stem. Whenever you see a note head like this with a stem, that note is 2 counts. By the way, these notes have real names. So this one, well, it depends on whether you are in the UK or in the US, because there's different terms that are used to describe these notes. So in America, this is known as a whole note. Okay, a whole note. Should be an E there. Wait, how do I move this? Okay, like that. So whole note. Okay. And the British would call this a semi-breve. Okay, I grew up using these British terms and then started reading a lot of American books, so it doesn't really matter what you call it, honestly. So whole note, semi-breve, they both mean the same thing. Okay, and then this one here is known as the half note, and I guess the Americans call this half note because it is half the length of the whole note. It's only 2 counts, whereas the whole note is 4. So half note, and the British call this the minim. Okay, I hope you can read my handwriting here. So, okay, so we had a note head, which is not colored in or anything, and then we had a note head with a stem. That was 2 counts. I'm now going to draw a note that looks like your half note or your minim, but then the difference is this one is colored in. Whenever you come across this note, it's only 1 count. Okay, and this is called a quarter note. Oops. I'm just going to write quarter. And the British refer to this as a crotchet. Okay, crotchet is 1 count. So I'm going to sing a note for 4 counts, and then I'm going to sing a note for 2 counts, and then I'm going to sing a note for 1 count. Okay. In other words, I'm going to sing a whole note, and then a half note, and then a quarter note. Okay, so here's my whole note. Ah. And here's my half note. Ah. And here is my quarter note. Ha. Okay, so I hope you can hear clearly that each note is a different duration. Okay, so these are known as note values. Maybe I'll give you, maybe I'll do one more. Okay, so the next note is what looks like a quarter note, but the difference is it's got a tail. Okay, this one wasn't as neat. I'm going to put another one there. So you've got a head and a stem, and it's all colored in. Yeah, that's probably a little better. Right, and this note is only half a beat. So it's not even 1 beat, it's that short, it's half a beat. Since I've drawn 2 of them, I've actually got half plus half. Okay, and these notes, again, this is where confusion can come in a little bit. So this note is half a beat long, but its name is actually an 8th note. Okay, and it's an 8th note because it is half the length of a quarter note. Okay, so this is an 8th note and also referred to as a quaver. Okay, so let's have a look at those note values one more time. Okay, so we've got the whole note, the half note, quarter notes, and over here I've got 2 8th notes. Actually, right, this is actually cool that I made a mistake on that first one, because it leads me to something else. Sometimes 8th notes are written like this, but the stems can also be joined because it can get quite messy if you don't join the stems. Okay, so the stems can be joined like this. So what I've got here, these are 2 8th notes, which is exactly the same as what I've got there. The only difference is this here is neater. Okay, and you can really see the need for joining those stems, especially when you now have a lot of these, right? Suppose you wanted to draw, I don't know how many of these. Sorry, I'm now just going quickly and not as neat, but hopefully this image just tells you that things are now getting untidy. Okay, so instead of having all those tails, you know what? Instead of having all those tails, you can just, sorry, again, my drawing here, not as neat. That might look neater. Okay, so these are 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are 8 8th notes or 8 quavers. And it looks much neater because now I've joined the tails. All right, so these are your note values. One other thing that helped me a lot here, I'll just go back to some like junior school information. Okay, so they will tell us to count whole notes like this. So just say go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can let go of your hands. Okay, so you hold that note until 4 counts. And if you wanted to do a half note, you do the same, but just count up to 2. So you'd go 1, 2, and then you let go. If you wanted to do a quarter note, then you just say 1. Actually, the other thing is you could do numbers, or you could use tars. Okay, so for your whole note, would say ta, ah, ah, ah. And for a half note, would say ta, ah. Quarter note, we will just say ta. For eighth notes, because it's only half, and this is where the tars help, we would actually say tate. So we would go tate. So if I wanted to play eighth notes like over here, I would actually say tate, 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 tate. Okay, because that's 4 beats in total. So this first one would be my ta, and then this one would be the te. So tate, ta, te, ta, te, ta, te, and so forth. Okay, so those are your basic note values. Okay, so as usual, I'm going to give you a little exercise. Okay, so if you can go to your manuscript, I'm going to go and use this right here. I'll use a digital one. Right, I'm going to put a treble clef there. What I would like you to do, I'll give you the instruction and then I'm going to do the answer. Okay, so please only look at the answer once you've written it down yourself. Okay, so what I want you to do is to write a G, which is a whole note or a semi-breve G or a whole note G. Okay, so try that. Press pause actually, and when you press play, I'm going to reveal the answer. And here's the answer. There is a semi-breve G. Here's another quiz for you. Right, let's see if you can draw a quarter note B. So pause it, and then here's the answer. Boom, I've drawn a quarter note B. Let's see if you can do 4 eighth note C's in the treble clef. 4 eighth note C's. So press pause. When you press play, here are 4 eighth note C's. So there's C, since it's treble clef, face, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are my 4 eighth note C's. Finally, let's draw half note. What have I not done? Half note A and E. Okay, so here's a half note A, and there's a half note E. So I mean, you could have drawn your E like this, or you could have drawn your E like that, and both are correct. Okay, so these little quizzes will help you familiarize yourself with note values, but also the names of the notes on either the treble clef or the bass clef. Okay, maybe I should give you a bass clef example as well. Let's see how well you remember this. So I'm going to turn this into a bass clef. I have no idea where that came from. Right, let's try this again, shall we? Boom. Okay, so in the bass clef, can you try and give me a quarter note C? So here's a quarter note C. Is it there? Is it there? It is there. Right. Now give me a half note G. Here's a half note G. Give me a whole note G. So there's my whole note. So you can either do that or that. Oops, not that. I mean that. Okay, so that's correct. Okay, finally, give me 8 eighth note Fs. Okay. Okay, so you can press pause. Here are my eighth notes. Watch, even my computer software knows which direction the stems should go, and it also knows how to make it neat by joining those tails together. Okay, that's actually known as beaming. So I'm putting a beam over those notes. Okay, so those are my note values and the lines and spaces of the treble clef and the bass clef. Okay, so you've learnt all these note values, which means you know when to play and how long to play. But what's also important is to know when not to play. Okay, so we're now going to learn what are known as rests. And rests are basically when you are silent. Okay, and again with silence, you've got to be silent for a certain duration of time. So I'm going to draw these on the stave just because they're much easier to see there. I'm going to start with a whole rest or a semi-breve rest. Now, to draw this, you need to go to line number 4 on your stave, and you're going to draw this little rectangle just underneath, like that, and then you color it in. So that there is a whole rest. Okay. So your whole rest means you're silent for 4 beats. So 4 beats of silence. And then we also have, I'm just going to put a line here to show you that I'm now doing a different thing. We have what's known as the half rest, which is 2 counts. That one is found on top of the middle line. This 2 can be quite confusing. Okay. So that there is a half rest. So here's a whole rest. And this one here is a half rest. Okay, in fact, I'm going to put 2 half rests here so that now these 2 things are the same length. Okay, now I'm gonna do this. Okay, so in this section here, I've got a whole rest or a semi-breve rest, and over here I've got 2 half rests or 2 minim rests is what they would be known as. Okay, the other rests, the smaller ones, I'm just going to put them right next to this. Okay, my stave is finished. So this here is a quarter rest or a crotchet rest. Okay, I'll draw that again. So it starts off a little bit like a Z or a Z. Okay, I don't know how else to describe this one. So you go boom, 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 and then you give it a little tummy. Okay, my first one wasn't as good, but this second one is more like it. Okay, so you might want to practice drawing your whole rests, your half rests, and also your quarter rests. Okay, here's an 8th note rest, and that one, let's see, I'm going to scroll up a little. In fact, you know what, I'll draw it right next to this. Right, so my 8th note rest, I'm going to put a little dot here, curve up a little bit, and then come down. That's an 8th note rest. I'm going to put another one right next to it. I'm going to start here, little curve up, and then it goes down. So that simply means you're silent for at least half a beat. Okay, so those are 2 8th rests. Okay, so now you know your note values, but you also know the rests. Okay, so just to put this information together, that was a whole note, and that's a whole rest. Okay, and these are both 4 counts each. And there is a half note and a half note rest is like that on top of the middle line, and these 2 things are 2 beats long. Okay, and then we learnt about the quarter note or the crotchet, and then we said its equivalent rest is that one there, and it's 1 count. And then finally we've got the 8th notes, which have a head, stem, they're colored in. I've just beamed 2 8th notes together because they're just easier to see. And there are 2/8 notes. Okay, so this is half, half plus half, half, half. Okay, so these are exactly the same. The next thing that I want to look at, now that we've got note values and rests, are these things known as bar lines. Okay, so a bar line is basically similar to, I'm gonna put one right here. Okay, so because I haven't used this stave, right? So a bar line looks like this. I'm gonna put another bar line here. Okay, so this red line here is what's known as a bar line. The notes are divided equally into each bar. In America, they refer to this space here as a measure. Okay, and in the UK, they refer to this as a bar. So the bar is not just a place you go and drink alcohol. It's a place where you've got musical notes that are the same number of beats. Right, so let's say let me put a whole note here. Okay, so that means there's four beats there. The normal thing to do is to then also have 4 beats of whatever in this next bar. So suppose I wanted to put some half notes. That means I can only put 2 half notes in here. I can't put 3 or I can't put that additional note, because now in this measure I've got 4 beats, but in this measure I've now got 5. Okay, so this won't really make sense. Okay, so ideally you want to have the same number of beats in each bar, and that is shown by this thing known as a time signature. Okay, so in this case we've got 4 beats in each measure or in each bar, so you'll find the number 4 at the beginning of your piece of music. It's telling you that there's 4 beats in each bar. Okay, normally you'd see 2 numbers, one on top of the other. So the top one is telling you how many beats are in each measure or in each bar, and then the bottom one is telling you what kind of note is in each measure. So here's a common time signature that you'd come across. It says 4/4. So the top 4, we've already said it's telling you how many counts are in each bar, but the bottom 4 is telling you what type of beat it is, what type of note values are we talking about. So 4, if you think of quarter notes, I mean, this is how you're in numbers. That's how you'd write a quarter, right? So that bottom 4 is telling us that this type of note is a quarter note. So we've got 4 quarter note beats, or at least the equivalent of 4 quarter note beats in each measure or in each bar. Okay. If you came across, I might be slightly complicated things here, but if you came across something and maybe it said 6/8 at the beginning of the music, okay, what that means, in fact, let me do it here. If you saw 6/8, what that means is, actually, let's go like this. I'm going to say 6/8. That means I've got 6 quaver beats in each bar. Okay, so that means, suppose I put a quarter note. 1 quarter note is the equivalent of 2 eighth notes, right? So that means I could put another one. So now I've got 4 eighth notes there. If I put another one, now I've got 6 eighth notes. So this measure here is correct. Okay, because now I've got the equivalent of 6 eighth note beats in that measure. Or I could simply put, okay, this is going to be untidy now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right, maybe something like this. So what I'm trying to do here is draw 6 eighth notes in this measure. So I've got 6 eighth note in this bar, and I've got 6 eighth note beats in that bar as well. So my time signature now makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you'll find different time signatures, and each song has got a certain time signature. For most pop music and maybe contemporary music, the time signature is usually 4/4. Okay, because you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 in each bar as the song goes along. But sometimes you've got songs where you have to feel 3 beats per bar. Okay, so here's an example of a measure. Actually, you know what? Let me make some mistakes here. So I mean, what's wrong with this measure right here? I've just put a whole note in that measure. So maybe think about it for a second, pause, and then press play, and I'm giving you the answer now. So what's wrong with it is that I've put a note that's 4 quarter note counts in that measure, but you know what, that's illegal because I'm only allowed 3 in this measure. Okay, so how can I fix that? I could turn that into a half note and maybe add a quarter note. Now I've got 3 beats in this bar. Okay, now what's wrong with maybe this? You can pause again, think about it, and then press play, and I'm going to tell you what's wrong. So now that you've pressed play, what's wrong with it is these 2 eighth notes only come up to 1 beat. So there's 2 beats missing to make it 3 beats in that bar, because that's what my time signature is. So to correct this, I'm going to put half note. Now I've got 3 beats in that bar. Okay, and I think that's enough theory for today. Okay, I don't want you to fall asleep, but please watch this video as many times as you need to. If you enjoy it, please give me a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, please let me know in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do, and that's just going to help me make more nice videos like this. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.